Hey, Mark.
And this is 39 take 3.
Hey, camera rolling, Mark. Good. Action.
You're on camera now, don't be a pussy. You can do that, right, David?
Can you believe he said that to me?
The only person I could really convince about this movie, about me doing Daredevil, was myself, to be honest. I mean, I knew I could do it. And I had to convince my wife and my friends and my partner, Gary Foster, and everybody I knew who also weren't sure if I could do it, quite frankly.
And cut, great. Print that, cut that.
Fairly, the studios were saying he'd never done a movie like this before as a director. Maybe we could get some A-list guy. And they were, you know, I put myself in their shoes. It's not an unfair thing to be thinking.
Gary's a pest. Foster. Single-mindedly, initially really out of his friendship and loyalty to his partner, to Mark. But then he became a geek himself and got caught in the excitement.
Chris Columbus developed Daredevil for a while at Fox, and Avi had a relationship with Chris, and you know, Mark Steven Johnson, who's that?
I remember Gary at one point said to me, "Just give up. You're not really going to keep trying." And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to go try it again." He was just like, "Jesus, man, move on and do something else."
As passionate as he is, it still needs a consensus, a group of people that are willing to say, I support this. So I was pretty, and I felt, you know, again, Mark Steven Johnson, Chris Columbus. Let's be honest. There's no way on the surface you're going to gravitate to the unknown.
People would always say the same thing, he's blind. They'd always go, how can he do what he does? And I'd explain, and they go, I don't know, it's pretty goddamn weird. A guy dresses up like the devil, and he's a blind lawyer, you know?
The biggest challenge is to look at the studio in the eyes and say to them, trust me. Why? Because it lasted for 40 years in the books.
In adapting the comic to the movie, there's always like a couple of things that every filmmaker's got to face. One is the fans, and I'm one of them. And you know, this is like my mythology, and these are the guys that I worship and I respect. And that's probably always been my biggest concern, is making sure the fans feel satisfied. At the same time, the non-fans will understand it. And the second thing is always the costume. Always, always the toughest thing to crack.
This is the end. This is how it ends, folks. This is how and where. Good run. Decent career. Had fun. Had some pride at one time.
We're going to reproduce your body totally, and they're going to sculpt on it.
Right.
And then we're going to take molds off of that. So whatever we make will fit your body. Okay, so it's like a personal suit. It just fits you, nobody else.
It's a living, you know what I mean? It's a good living. Am I getting paid for today?
This is a very, very tricky area when it comes to costumes and superheroes. How far can you go without looking silly? You know, I had to go find an actor who was willing to put on a devil costume and run around New York City. I mean, that's a pretty risky thing. You know, it really takes balls to do something like that, because the chance of looking ridiculous is very, very high.
You see if the front half tweaked a little bit, out and the back half tweaked a little bit in, then they would match up when we put the
That
mold
would really
two
be
halves
hell
together.
If you did the top and the bottom together.
That would be painful.
Whoa.
That is a trip.
There you go. You sure you want to take it?
Can I take a shower, guys?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
My first image with Mark Steven Johnson was him presenting me with a very beautiful maquette, a small sculpt of Daredevil, and saying, I want it to look like that. And I thought, great, this we can do. Within a week, I got these frantic phone calls saying, the concept has to completely change. We don't even think we want it to be red. We certainly don't want it to have horns. They're freaked out that it might look too much like Spider-Man.
So all of this were the initial research for the red of Daredevil. Material, spandex, leather, net, made up, all the different techniques we could do, all the different faux techniques we could do of the pleated leather, the textured leather, silkscreen, hand painting, as well as just figuring out what Daredevil's red is. We went through every shade of red there was.
I can tell you that I once was driving along a freeway and I took a call from a group of executives sitting in a projection theater, winding a test piece of film backwards and forwards and having a 40-minute conversation about the color red. That's how crazy it got.
We're working on Daredevil's mask, which is a leather-covered piece of vacuform that's made up in black first and then sort of dry brushed red. And then from there we'll take it and age it throughout the movie.
This is the Ben final sculpt that's done in plaster and then drilled out so that they can vacuform and have the vacuform pull down onto the plaster. And you end up with not something like that we trim out, and then this then is covered in leather.
Mark Steven Johnson's ability to cope with the vagaries of, and changes of opinion on this movie was remarkable. I'm so impressed with this young guy who can absorb that kind of pressure.
And at some point you just feel like, you know, you're fucking Joan of Arc and you're hearing the voices. You're going insane. And there's a certain point in the process where I had to say, guys, you know, everybody talk together and then come to me with thoughts. Because I have so much going on. There's so much to do. I cannot satisfy and listen to all these different opinions.
Oh yeah, that's
Okay.
we thought rather than
And then
putting
the
lights
elbow?
over the top. Pardon?
But you like the elbow
I
pad.
quite like the elbow pad. I thought it was too thick.
This is too thick and too much, too buckly.
Glued, and it's riveted to the sleeve just below the muscle, so that the whole thing looks as though you shove. You know, it's giving it a whole reason for pulling the sleeve up.
I think you should, I don't know, I think
Just
they should
cut
be
'em off?
cut off and just have them end and do something, I don't know, I just think, when these start rolling up, whenever we see guys in leather jackets that roll them up,
I guess what we were trying to do was to get this idea to work, this idea of something that you yanked up for even higher.
yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
So are you saying you don't want any of that?
No, I think that we can still have some structure in this and go to the elbow pad, but I don't think that you need to have a big old system to hoist up his sleeve. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Then he's just like, wow, it's really hot in the kitchen. Whew, dying. This is great, you guys. You're really badass. Really great.
It's a collaboration when you're making a movie, especially when you're designing these kinds of characters. So the studio has a point of view, and other producers have a point of view, and the costume designer has a point of view, and the actor has a point of view. So we went through quite a series of ideas. Is Daredevil traditional? Is he completely untraditional? There was a conversation at one point, maybe he's a guy just wears a sweatshirt and jeans and he's just, on the street as a vigilante thug. Obviously, Mark was ready to pull his hair out, but he had to go through this process because everybody had to download their ideas.